The Holy Land of Martialism now calls Chu Feng its overlord, yet his eyes are already fixed far beyond that title. With Wang Qiang and old companions beside him, he returns to the Eastern Sea region, witnesses an astonishing passage carved by his father, and desperately attempts to resurrect the fallen Chu family before the heavenly road opens. But as Chu Feng races toward the long-awaited meeting with his father, the four great divine beasts suddenly reveal that the Moon Immortal carries a secret important enough for them to warn him. If she is ever captured, she must not be harmed. Well, look who the mountain wind dragged back into my little storytelling hall. The tea has gone cold twice. Someone has stolen half the roasted chestnut, and I was beginning to suspect you fellow daoists had wandered into a forbidden realm without leaving direction. Come warm your hands by the brazier, because tonight's tale carries us from the cheers of an entire world to a family resurrection, a legendary father, and one very troubling secret about the Moon Immortal. Once the dust of battle had settled, Chu Feng finally sat down. The great calamity threatening the Holy Land of Martialism had ended, yet the path before him was far from finished. He gestured toward the empty chair beside him, his manner calm and familiar.
Come have a seat. Let me tell you about my story.
See coming.
Wang Qiang hurried over in obvious excitement. He seized a large plate of refreshments with one hand and began stuffing food into his mouth with the other, yet his eyes never left Chu Feng. For once even his appetite seemed secondary to his curiosity. Chu Feng began recounting everything that had happened in this land. He spoke of the Chu heavenly clan, of the death of the Dark Hall's Hall Master, and of Zhu Jai escaping into the mysterious outer world. He concealed nothing because Wang Qiang was no longer merely an acquaintance met along the martial path. Chu Feng regarded him as a genuine friend. Wang Qiang had entrusted Chu Feng with his own secret, and Chu Feng answered that trust with the truth. In the Jianghu, where suspicion can survive longer than grudges, such honesty carried weight. There was another reason as well. Wang Qiang possessed extraordinary talent. He was certainly not someone destined to remain trapped beneath the same small patch of heaven forever. Chu Feng intended to invite him into the outer world. For Chu Feng, that invitation meant more than gaining a powerful companion. The outer world represented unknown clans, unknown enemies, and an immeasurably greater martial state. Traveling with someone he trusted meant he would not have to step into that vastness alone.
Go T to the OO outer world T together. Are there a lot of beauties in the outer W world?
I don't know if there are a lot of beauties in the outer world. However, the outer world most definitely possesses an innumerable amount of experts. If you wish to obtain even greater progress on the path of martial cultivation, the outer world is a place that you must go to.
Chu Feng understood the truth of cultivation clearly. Remaining supreme in a smaller world could eventually become another kind of cage. If Wang Qiang wished to climb higher, he needed stronger opponents, broader inheritances, and a heaven vast enough to reveal where his limits truly lay.
Actually, I've long since grown tired of this place. As since that trash Dark Hall's Hall Master is dead, let's go then. Why the wait? Let's go to the outer W world right now.
The unknown did not frighten Wang Qiang. It thrilled him. The outer world had become a new horizon in his eyes, one filled with experts' opportunities and challenges worthy of his talent.
Not yet. There are still some things that must be taken care of here.
What are those?
The resurrection of my family.
The answer immediately changed the atmosphere. Beyond enemies' cultivation realms and the mysteries of the outer world, there remained a promise Chu Feng had never forgotten.
Family. Isn't why your family in the outer W world? Look, you've completely confused me.
My story is very long. If you wish to know more about me, I can slowly tell you about it. However, it must be done while we travel.
With that settled, Chu Feng sought out the blind old man. His heart was already urging him onward. The Dark Hall's Hall Master was dead, and there was no reason to delay the matter of reviving his family any longer.
Master, it is good for you to leave now. The reason for that is because the Eastern Sea region's heavenly road should be opening soon. This is the perfect timing for me to accompany Master to see Lord Xuanyuan. However, Master, you must not take that vicious spatial crack again. Instead, you should take the safe one.
There's another spatial crack that leads to the Eastern Sea region.
There is.
Thus, Chu Feng and Wang Qiang departed from the realm of God. The greatest enemy of the Holy Land of Martialism had fallen, and with the cultivation possessed by these two, almost no one remaining in this world could threaten them. Even so, the blind old man chose to accompany them. His presence would greatly shorten their journey, and he had reasons of his own. He wished to pay his respects to Chu Feng's father and see how Zai Ling was doing. Yet because of his identity, he would not openly appear. As before, the old expert would remain hidden in the shadows. Chu Feng's first destination was the Transmogrification Gate. Hundreds of millions had sheltered there beneath the shadow of the dark hall. Before continuing his own journey, he needed to bring them the news they had been waiting desperately to hear. But there were truths he could not reveal. Too many ears were gathered here. The existence of the realm of gods and matters concerning the Chu heavenly clan were secrets that could not be scattered throughout the Holy Land of Martialism. This was not deception for personal gain. Chu Feng was separating the truth people needed from the secrets they had no reason to bear. Sometimes protecting a secret also protected those who were better off never becoming involved with the powers behind it. When Chu Feng appeared, emotion surged through the crowd. Relief, excitement, and gratitude spread like a tide. He gave them a simplified account of how the Dark Hole's Hall Master had died, carefully hiding what could not be spoken. And in truth, the details mattered little to those listening. They did not care which hidden realm had witnessed the final struggle, nor what secrets had surrounded the enemy's death. The only truth that mattered was this: the Dark Hole's Hall Master was dead. At last the Transmogrification Gate opened. The terror that had forced humans and monstrous beasts into refuge was gone. Great clan sects, races, and wandering cultivators could finally return to their own land. Smiles filled the entire region. Humans smiled. Monstrous beasts smiled. Survivors who had endured the same calamity stepped back beneath the open sky with the joy of people who had been granted another chance to return home. Chu Feng smiled with them. Yet he did not look upon the countless survivors and think himself extraordinary. What satisfied him was something simpler. Because he had acted, these people could live, their powers could continue, and their homes would not vanish beneath the ambitions of one ruthless enemy.
Chu Feng also understood the cruelty of the martial world too well to mistake this peaceful moment for eternal harmony. Humans and monstrous beasts who had endured disaster shoulder to shoulder might someday draw weapons against one another over benefits, grudges, territory, or pride. No amount of personal strength could erase every conflict beneath heaven.
But that did not make his actions meaningless. One person could never save everyone in the world. Saving those within his reach was already enough. There is something quietly powerful in that idea. Heroism here is not portrayed as controlling every future outcome, but as refusing to abandon innocent lives simply because the world will remain imperfect afterward. Then, after hundreds of millions had emerged from the Transmogrification Gate, something unexpected happened. They did not disperse toward their home. Instead, the vast multitude assembled across the land in orderly rank. Countless faces tilted upward toward Chu Feng, who stood high in the sky. Gratitude burned in their eyes, but alongside it was something even stronger: reverence.
Emperor Chu, Emperor Chu, Emperor Chu, Emperor Chu.
Men and women, humans and monstrous beasts, the young and the old, all raised their arms and shouted the same title. The roar of hundreds of millions rolled across heaven and earth. Chu Feng, however, was completely bewildered. He turned toward the Elf King standing nearby, seeking an explanation.
What is this?
Before the Elf King could answer, Xian Miao Miao cheerfully seized the opportunity.
Haha, I know. Let me explain it to you. It's like this. The Dark Hole's Hall Master has been killed by you, and the Magma Emperor has been subdued by you. Thus the people here wholeheartedly believe that you are the fully deserving ruler of this era. Thus, after you left, the people unanimously decided to deem you an emperor as this era's sole overlord.
After a series of intense discussions, they decided to address you as Emperor Chu.
Furthermore, your status in the hearts of the crowd already surpasses that of Emperor King. Everyone feels that you are the strongest emperor, the strongest overlord since the ancient era. However, that's not the important point. Most importantly, it is I who suggested the name Emperor Chu. How is it? Do you like it?
Xian Miao Miao proudly emphasized her own contribution to the title, but Chu Feng's attention had already shifted elsewhere.
Emperor Chu.
He instinctively looked toward Wang Qiang. There was an obvious contradiction before him. In terms of raw cultivation and battle strength, Wang Qiang currently surpassed Chu Feng.
BB by O overlorded, M, means S someone that has managed to obtain the W will of the P people. Chu Feng UH have evidently accomplished it.
For a moment Chu Feng stared at him in surprise. Wang Qiang often behaved carelessly and spoke in a manner that made him appear simple-minded. Yet these words carried an unexpected clarity. Wang Qiang had identified the true foundation of this title. An overlord was not merely the person with the hardest fist. Strength could force people to kneel, but it could not force genuine gratitude into their heart. Chu Feng's authority had been forged through action sacrifice and the lives he had protected. Wang Qiang might possess greater strength, but he had done nothing for the countless inhabitants of the Holy Land of Martialism. Few people even knew his name, much less the true extent of his power. If Wang Qiang suddenly stepped forward and declared himself the strongest expert in the Holy Land of Martialism, the declaration would likely earn him curses instead of worship. Even if he challenged Chu Feng before everyone's eyes and defeated him in battle, the crowd would still have little reason to acknowledge him as their overlord. Because when calamity descended, it was Chu Feng who had stepped forward. Chu Feng had fought when hundreds of millions were facing death. Chu Feng had risked himself for people who shared neither his blood nor his sect. There are always powerful cultivators in a martial world. Far rarer are those willing to spend that power protecting strangers. That difference explains why the people chose Chu Feng, rather than simply searching for whoever possessed the highest cultivation realm. To the people of the Holy Land of Martialism, only one man had earned the right to stand above this era as its recognized overlord. And perhaps this is what makes the title Emperor Chu more significant than another breakthrough or another defeated enemy. Chu Feng did not seize this title. He did not demand it. Hundreds of millions placed it upon him themselves. In a world where supremacy is so often measured by cultivation alone, he had gained something even harder to obtain: the will of the people. The title of Overlord had already spread across the Holy Land of Martialism, carried by countless voices that had survived the calamity. Yet when that enormous reputation finally rested upon his shoulders, Chu Feng merely smiled.
Overlord, it is merely a false reputation.
After speaking, Chu Feng raised his eyes toward the distant heavens. Somewhere beyond that unreachable sky existed a world their current strength could not touch. Only by ascending the stairway to heaven could one cross that boundary and enter the mysterious outer world.
Here a cultivator might stand at the summit and be hailed as an overlord. But what weight would such a title possess beyond this world, Chu Feng did not know. Deep within his heart, however, he suspected that the mighty figures revered in the Holy Land of Martialism might be regarded as little more than two ants by the true experts of the outer world. That thought revealed how far Chu Feng's vision had already traveled. While others celebrated his rise to the summit, he was already staring toward a mountain infinitely higher.
Chu Feng, even if you call it a false reputation, it is still a reputation that cannot be obtained by just anyone. To the people of the Holy Land of Martialism, that title has become a belief. The belief that when calamity descends, someone will stand before them and stop it.
And you are qualified to carry that reputation. You are capable of shouldering the faith they have placed upon you.
Chu Feng understood the Elf King's meaning, yet his thoughts had already turned toward what remained after the war. The Dark Hall's Hall Master was dead, but victory had not magically restored the lands that had been shattered.
Your Majesty, although the Dark Hall's Hall Master is dead, the Holy Land of Martialism is still in complete disorder. The homes of many powers have already been destroyed. Humans and monstrous beasts alike will have to rebuild everything they lost. For that I fear they will still need the ancient era's elves. Everyone will continue to need your assistance. As for me, I will soon be traveling far away. So if the people truly require an overlord, I believe your majesty is far more suited to that title.
There was no false modesty hidden in those words. Chu Feng knew that defeating the strongest enemy and governing a wounded world were two entirely different responsibilities. The ancient era's elves possessed power, organization, influence, and most importantly the intention to remain. Chu Feng was already preparing to leave. From his perspective, giving greater authority to the Elf King would benefit the Holy Land far more than preserving his own fame. The Elf King immediately laughed at the suggestion.
Little friend Chu Feng, please don't joke around. Even if I wish to accept that title, the people of the Holy Land of Martialism would never bestow it upon me. And do not go telling everyone that I should become their overlord. If you do, I suspect they will drown me to death with their spit.
The heaven-reaching immortal also refused to allow Chu Feng to push the title away.
Chu Feng, that title belongs to you alone. Stop trying to evade it. Even this old man believes that only you are worthy of being called the overlord.
Seniors, all of you truly think too highly of me.
Chu Feng genuinely felt somewhat ashamed. If an overlord was meant to be someone who had earned the will of the people by acting for the good of the entire Holy Land, then he did not believe that defeating the Dark Hall's Hall Master alone made him the obvious choice. His battle against the Dark Hall's Hall Master had indeed protected countless lives, but Chu Feng knew his own heart. He had not fought solely for some grand ideal of saving the world. Personal reasons had also driven his blade. Meanwhile, the ancient era's elves had thrown their strength into opposing the Dark Hall from beginning to end. Their contribution could never be erased, and among them the Elf King had borne the heaviest burden. More importantly, although Chu Feng's body was still standing within the Holy Land of Martialism, his heart had already crossed toward the outer world. Fame in this land no longer mattered greatly to him. The ancient era's elves, however, would remain here. If that reputation could strengthen their authority and help them restore order, Chu Feng would gladly surrender it. This was one of the clearest signs of Chu Feng's changing position. He had once struggled merely to survive beneath stronger cultivators. Now he possessed enough influence to decide where the prestige of an entire era should fall, yet he regarded that prestige as something useful only if it could help others stabilize the realm. The Elf King, however, had already seen through his intention.
Chu Feng, I know what you are thinking. We ancient era's elves appreciate your kind intentions. But the people here are not fools. They are martial cultivators with their own wisdom. They know how to distinguish good from bad. If they acknowledge you as their overlord, then you are their overlord. Even if you refuse the title with your own mouth, you will remain the overlord within their hearts.
There was little Chu Feng could say against that. Reputation forced upon a man by authority could be rejected. Reputation born from the hearts of countless people was another matter entirely. Chu Feng finally exhaled and yielded.
Forget about it.
At that moment, the heaven-reaching immortal caught something far more important in Chu Feng's earlier word.
Little friend, Chu Feng, you said that you would be traveling far away. Where exactly are you planning to go? Could it be that you intend to return to the Eastern Sea region?
Chu Feng's answer was simple, yet it struck everyone present like thunder.
I am going to the outer world.
Shock swept across the gathering. The outer world was not merely another distant region. To the experts of the Holy Land of Martialism, it represented a realm beyond the ceiling of everything they knew.
The outer world.
The Elf King's composure immediately changed. His gaze instinctively flickered toward his daughter Xian Miao Miao.
Chu Feng, you know a way to enter the outer world.
At Misty Peak in the Eastern Sea region, there is a formation known as the Stairway to Heaven. Through that formation, one can enter the outer world.
Chu Feng deliberately said nothing about the realm of God. These people were his trusted companions, but trust was not the issue. The realm of gods had its own rules, and Chu Feng had no desire to violate them. He also wished to preserve that hidden place as a peaceful sanctuary for the blind old man and the others. Some secrets were valuable precisely because they remained untouched by the ambitions of the wider martial world. Chu Feng understood that revealing every path simply because he possessed it would be reckless rather than generous.
Little friend Chu Feng, is this truly real?
The Elf King's excitement was difficult to conceal.
I intend to return to the Eastern Sea region first and settle several matters. Once they are finished, I will depart directly from there and enter the outer world.
Then Chu Feng turned toward Zion Mio Miao.
Mio Miao, come with me. I have a feeling that the outer world possesses far richer cultivation resources. With your talent, your future there should be much brighter.
Chu Feng had already promised the Elf King that, when the time came, he would take Zion Mio Miao with him to the outer world. Now that the road was finally opening before him, he naturally intended to fulfill that promise. And his invitation was not merely sentimental. Zion Mio Miao's cultivation talent was astonishing. Chu Feng even vaguely suspected that her innate talent might surpass his own. With enough resources and opportunity, she possessed every qualification to establish herself in the outer world. For a cultivator of Zion Mio Miao's potential remaining forever in a lower realm could eventually become a cage. The stronger one's talent, the more important the environment becomes. Chu Feng was not simply inviting a companion, he was pointing her toward a wider cultivation path. Yet Zion Mio Miao did not immediately accept.
Chu Feng, I already know about the matters concerning my mother. However, I do not wish to enter the outer world just yet.
Mio Miao, you belong to the outer world.
The Elf King's words were firm, but Zion Mio Miao's answer came from a place cultivation could not easily overcome.
Royal Father, I will go to the outer world. I also want to find my biological mother. But before that, I want to stay with you and Big Sister for a little longer.
As she looked at the Elf King and Princess Lingyu, reluctance filled her eyes. The outer world might contain greater inheritances, stronger experts, and boundless opportunities, but none of those things could replace time with family. Princess Lingyu understood her younger sister immediately.
Royal Father, since Mio Miao wants to remain for a while longer, you should not urge her to leave. Let her stay with us. After all, she is still very young.
Lingyu herself was reluctant to part with her sister, and beneath the Elf King's urging lay the same contradiction. As a father, how could he truly wish to watch his own daughter disappear into an unknown world beyond his reach?
Very well.
This choice carried quiet emotional weight. The cultivation world constantly demanded departure, leave the clan, leave the continent, leave the world itself, in pursuit of a higher realm. Yet Mio Miao chose not to rush. For once, advancement could wait. Family could not. Chu Feng did not pressure her either. Instead, he offered a more practical suggestion.
Mio Miao, even if you choose to enter the outer world by yourself later, you should still accompany me to the Eastern Sea region this time. I will take you to see the formation leading there. Then, when you decide to leave in the future, you will know exactly how to enter the outer world.
Princess Lingyu immediately remembered another danger.
But isn't the spatial crack leading to the Eastern Sea region extremely vicious?
I discovered another spatial crack. This one is benign and very safe.
With the danger of the journey removed, the heaven-reaching immortal made a suggestion that immediately changed Chu Feng's quiet departure into something far grander.
Since that is the case, let us all travel there together. Little friend Chu Feng will soon be leaving us, so we should at least see him off.
Zion Mio Miao's earlier reluctance immediately gave way to excitement.
Great, great, great. Let's all go together. I've never been to the Eastern Sea region before. I want to see exactly what the place where Chu Feng grew up is like. I also want to meet his friends and relatives there.
Since even the heaven-reaching immortal intends to go, then, naturally, we ancient era's elves cannot be absent.
The Elf King then turned his gaze toward Bali Xuankong Nangong Longjian, the weaponry refinement, Immortal, the compass immortal, the snow-haired immortal, and the many other experts who shared deep ties with Chu Feng. No long discussion was necessary. One after another they nodded with unmistakable enthusiasm. These were people who had witnessed Chu Feng's rise with their own eyes. Some had guided him, some had fought beside him, and some had watched the once young cultivator climb from obscurity to the summit of the Holy Land of Martialism. Now that Chu Feng was preparing to leave this world behind, none of them wished to miss the chance to accompany him on one final road. There was something fitting about the destination. Chu Feng had crossed countless battlefields and shaken the entire Holy Land, yet, before stepping into the greater universe, his path turned back toward the Eastern Sea region, the land connected to his earlier years. The road forward first required a journey home. Chu Feng then looked toward four figures, whose fame belonged to an era far older than his own.
4 seniors, do you also plan to come?
Even though Chu Feng now possessed overwhelming prestige throughout the Holy Land of Martialism, the 4 great divine beasts had already been legendary existences long before he was born. Calling them seniors was only natural. The azure dragon answered without hesitation, its mighty voice rolling across the surroundings like thunder.
Chu Feng, you are our master. Wherever our master goes, we will follow.
The words were spoken openly without the slightest restraint. The elf king heard them. The heaven-reaching immortal heard them. Every expert nearby heard them. A collective hiss of astonishment swept through the crowd. The 4 great divine beasts were no ordinary followers. Each was a half-martial ancestor, and their names had already resounded throughout the Holy Land of Martialism 10,000 years ago. Everyone knew that the present Chu Feng possessed enough strength to subdue them. Yet knowing that fact was one thing. Hearing the legendary Azure Dragon personally declare Chu Feng, its master, was something entirely different. If there had still been anyone who doubted who stood at the summit of this era, those few words erased the doubt. Ancient legends were willingly following a young cultivator who had risen in the present age. Symbolically, it was as though the glory of the old era itself had bowed to the arrival of the new. And so the decision was made. The enormous group began flying toward the Eastern Sea region. Around Chu Feng gathered not only the greatest experts of the older generation, but also younger cultivators such as Tantai Zhu and Sima Ying. Jiang Wusheng and Zhang Tianyi naturally joined them as well. For those two, this was more than a journey to see Chu Feng off. The Eastern Sea region and beyond it, the 9 provinces continent, was also their homeland. Thus, after surviving a war that had nearly swallowed the Holy Land of Martialism, the figures standing at the peak of the realm set out together, not toward another battlefield, but toward the place where many of their stories had begun. Yet beneath the warmth of this homeward journey lay an unavoidable truth. This was also a farewell. Chu Feng had conquered the summit of the Holy Land of Martialism, but the stairway to heaven waited ahead. Beyond it was the outer world where his title, his victories, and perhaps even his current strength might mean almost nothing. For Chu Feng, one legend was ending, and a far greater, far more dangerous one was about to begin. After traveling for some time, Chu Feng and the others finally reached the end of the heavenly road, the boundary, overlooking the Eastern Sea region. Yet this road between worlds was never truly a road in both directions. The heavenly road permitted passage only one way, as though some ancient law had deliberately established an equilibrium between the Eastern Sea region and the Holy Land of Martialism. Between those two lands rested an enormous and mysterious power. It barred cultivators of the Holy Land of Martialism from simply descending into the Eastern Sea region. For anyone wishing to cross that barrier in reverse, an ordinary path was useless. They needed a spatial crack capable of piercing through the ancient obstruction itself. The Compass Immortal had indeed discovered such a crack before, but that passage was vicious beyond measure. Chu Feng and the strongest experts might survive it, yet forcing the entire group through would be gambling with lives for no reason. Chu Feng's decision here was simple but revealing. Possessing strength did not mean every danger had to be challenged. When safer choices existed, risking weaker companions merely to prove courage would not be bravery, it would be recklessness. Then without warning, a familiar voice entered Chu Feng's ears through secret transmission.
Chu Feng, raise your hand.
The blind old man had never revealed himself, but he had followed Chu Feng's group all this time like an unseen shadow. None among the gathered experts had detected him. That alone demonstrated the terrifying gulf between them. The blind old man was a rank 5 half-martial ancestor. Within the present Holy Land of Martialism, calling him the strongest expert was no exaggeration.
Blind uncle, you might as well reveal yourself. Aren't some of the people here your old friends?
Chu Feng knew that many people in the Holy Land of Martialism had encountered the blind old man, before though the circumstances of those meetings remained obscure. In the Eastern Sea region, even more people knew of him. To Chu Feng continuing to hide seemed unnecessary.
Master, it was different back then. Since this old servant has recognized Master, it means that I cannot show even the smallest trace of disrespect toward Master. My previous identities were all fake. However, my current identity is real.
Chu Feng immediately understood. In the past, the old man could conceal himself behind false identities and disguises. Now, however, acknowledging Chu Feng as his master had changed everything. If he appeared without disguise, everyone would inevitably discover the extraordinary relationship between them. Rather than expose that secret, the blind old man preferred to remain unseen. His concealment was therefore not cowardice but restraint. A rank 5 half-martial ancestor openly serving Chu Feng would instantly alter how every major power viewed the young man, and might reveal matters the blind old man clearly believed should remain hidden. Since the old man had his own concerns, Chu Feng did not press him further. Then Chu Feng suddenly swept his sleeve. A layer of spirit power rolled outward before the watching crowd. In truth, that spirit power accomplished absolutely nothing. Chu Feng was merely following the blind old man's instruction. And at that exact instant, space trembled. An enormous spatial crack tore open from nothingness. Of course, Chu Feng had not summoned it. Hidden from every eye, the blind old man had activated the passage at the very moment Chu Feng moved his hand. The gathered experts stared astonishment flashing across their faces. This spatial crack was enormous, wide, brilliant, stable, and possessed of an imposing grandeur that made the dangerous passage discovered by the Compass Immortal seem almost pitiful. Calling it a mere crack in space hardly did it justice. Before them stretched a genuine spatial tunnel, a magnificent corridor, piercing directly through the ancient energy that divided the Holy Land of Martialism from the Eastern Sea region. If the Compass Immortal's route resembled a narrow trail tangled with thorns where every step threatened disaster, then the passage before them was a grand road ascending toward the heaven.
Chu Feng, how did you discover this spatial crack?
I managed to discover this spatial crack by chance after returning to the Eastern Sea region.
Chu Feng answered with an easy smile, but 4 figures immediately noticed that something did not add up: the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. The 4 great divine beasts had accompanied Chu Feng throughout his journey. Even when they had previously traveled from the Eastern Sea region back into the Holy Land of Martialism, they had used the dangerous spatial crack. At no point had they encountered anything remotely resembling this magnificent tunnel. They sensed that something was strange, yet none of them questioned him. Instead, the 4 silently played along as though they had noticed nothing. That small silence spoke volumes. The 4 great divine beasts understood that Chu Feng was hiding something, but their trust in him outweighed their curiosity. In the martial world, knowing when not to expose another person's secret can be as important as knowing when to draw a weapon.
This is truly extraordinary. If that vicious spatial crack was only discovered by coincidence, then this spatial crack has simply appeared like a fine work of art.
Voices of astonishment rose throughout the group. Chu Feng could do nothing except maintain a calm smile, despite the awkward truth that this was also his first time seeing the tunnel. Beneath that outward composure, however, Chu Feng was no less shocked than anyone else. He immediately sent another secret transmission toward the hidden old man.
Blind uncle, how did you discover this spatial crack?
Master, this spatial crack was not discovered by this old servant. Rather, it was created by Lord Xianxia.
Those words struck Chu Feng like sudden thunder.
My father.
Indeed, Lord Xianxia created this spatial crack for the sake of making it easy for me to travel to the Eastern Sea region.
Chu Feng's astonishment deepened. The power separating the Holy Land of Martialism and the Eastern Sea region was no ordinary barrier. It was something mighty enough to dictate the movement of cultivators between 2 enormous regions. Yet his father had forcibly split that power apart and carved a stable tunnel straight through it, not for some legendary war nor for some grand display before the world, but simply so that the blind old man could travel conveniently between the two lands. That detail made the accomplishment even more frightening. A feat that appeared miraculous to the greatest experts of the Holy Land of Martialism had seemingly been nothing more than a practical solution in Chu Xuanyuan's hand. The difference in scale was staggering. A question surged uncontrollably through Chu Feng's mind. Father, exactly how powerful are you? His blood seemed to race hotter through his veins. Excitement rose from somewhere deep within him, carrying with it admiration, longing, and the growing certainty that the man he had spent so long seeking belonged to a realm far beyond anything Chu Feng currently understood. Long ago, when Huang Fuheiyu first spoke of Chu Feng's father, Chu Feng had already suspected that his father must be terrifyingly powerful. Otherwise, how could someone like Huang Fuheiyu have feared him so deeply? But until now, that belief had still contained the hopes of a son. Chu Feng did not actually know his father's cultivation, nor could he measure the true extent of his strength. He simply admired his father from the bottom of his heart, and naturally wished for that father to stand among the strongest beneath the heavens. Now, however, there was something tangible before his eyes. Chu Feng might still know nothing of his father's exact cultivation, but this tunnel was proof, a colossal accomplishment left behind by Chu Xuanyuan himself. Even the current Chu Feng could not hope to create such a passage. More startling still, he could not confidently say that years of cultivation would necessarily allow him to reproduce the feat. For Chu Feng, this tunnel was more than a road between regions. It was a glimpse of the mountain standing ahead of him, the overwhelming height of his father's power, and perhaps the scale of the world Chu Feng would eventually have to enter. And with that realization, his desire to meet his biological father grew more urgent than ever.
Everyone, let's go.
Well then, everyone stop looking at it. Let's go.
The Elf King had good reason to urge them onward. Even then, much of the crowd remained transfixed by the tunnel, especially the great world spiritists, the heaven-reaching immortal weaponry refinement, immortal compass, immortal and snow-haired immortal. Their instincts told them that this passage did not resemble something formed by nature. Its structure carried traces of deliberate creation, as though an unimaginable expert had treated space itself like material to be shaped by hand. They studied it closely, hoping to uncover the truth. Yet no matter how carefully they observed, they lacked the strength needed to comprehend its profound mystery. There was a certain irony in that scene. These were world spiritists standing near the summit of the Holy Land of Martialism, yet before Chu Xuanyuan's handiwork, they could only stare like apprentices confronting an inscription whose language lay beyond their understanding. At last, the entire group entered the tunnel created by Chu Feng's father. They passed through the barrier between regions and emerged safely in the Eastern Sea region. Chu Feng wasted no time. He directly led the experts of the Holy Land of Martialism toward Misty Peak. There was an important reason for returning there. Xian Miao Miao needed to know the location of the formation that led toward the outer world. When Chu Feng arrived at Misty Peak, accompanied by such a formidable procession, those who lived there, including Huang Fuheiyu and Qieshui Fuyan, were stunned. They had always known Chu Feng was powerful, but only now did they realize that their understanding of his power had fallen far behind reality. They did not even need to recognize every great expert who had accompanied him. Merely seeing the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise standing behind Chu Feng on either side was enough. The four great divine beasts' existences wrapped in ancient legend now followed Chu Feng. To Huang Fuheiyu and the others, that single sight revealed just how far the young man who once walked these lands had climbed. No one in the Eastern Sea region could compare with Chu Feng's present strength and status, and judging from the experts surrounding him, he clearly possessed tremendous influence even within the Holy Land of Martialism. To those who had known Chu Feng during his earlier struggles, this return carried special weight. He had not merely come home stronger. He had returned as someone standing at the center of an entire era, surrounded by beings who once would have seemed like distant legends. Yet Huang Fuheiyu and the others still did not know the full truth. Chu Feng was not merely an influential figure, within the Holy Land of Martialism. He was the man acknowledged by all as the overlord of the current era. And perhaps the most fascinating contrast was this. While an entire world had begun looking up to Chu Feng himself had just discovered how impossibly high the figure of his own father still stood above him. Chu Feng's return sent waves of astonishment through the misty peak, yet he had no intention of lingering. This journey was not a homecoming meant for rest. He had brought Miao and the others only to see the stairway to heaven, and to meet once more with Fuyan and Fuheyu before moving on. He casually explained that Miao and the others might one day need to use the stairway to heaven, and asked Fuyan and Fuheyu not to obstruct them. Then, without concealing his true purpose, Chu Feng revealed why he had returned to the Eastern Sea region. He was going back to the 9 provinces continent, back to the land where the blood of the Chu family had once been spilled. This time, however, he was not returning for revenge. He was returning with a secret technique that might accomplish something far more unbelievable, bringing the dead back to life. When Fuheyu and the others learned that Chu Feng intended to revive his relatives and depart immediately afterward, they chose to accompany him. They knew almost nothing of the outer world, but they understood one thing clearly. Once Chu Feng left this time, they might not see him again for many years. That decision carried more weight than a simple farewell. To these people, Chu Feng was no longer merely the youth they had once protected. He was someone whose road had already stretched beyond the limits of the world they knew. If they wished to walk beside him again, even briefly, this might be their final chance. Thus Chu Feng's company grew larger still. Powerful figures from the Holy Land of Martialism joined old acquaintances from the Eastern Sea region, and this formidable gathering swept toward the 9 provinces continent with majestic momentum.
I truly never would have thought that Chu Feng would have already become this powerful in merely a few short years.
Wang Fuhayu, Qi Shui, Fuyan, and the others looked toward Chu Feng at the head of the group with complicated emotions in their eyes. During the journey, Shanmiao Sima Yang Princess Ling Ye and several other juniors from the Holy Land of Martialism had approached them, eager to hear about Chu Feng's deeds in the Eastern Sea region.
Yet the exchange went both ways. While Fuheyu and the others spoke of Chu Feng's past, the younger generation from the Holy Land of Martialism told them what Chu Feng had accomplished after leaving them behind. Only then did those old companions fully understand Chu Feng's present strength and the towering status he now possessed throughout the Holy Land of Martialism. The contrast was almost difficult to comprehend. Once Chu Feng had truly been a junior who needed their protection. Now the distance between their cultivation and his had become so vast that the realm he occupied was one they could scarcely even touch. In the martial world, years can pass like falling leaves, yet for a true genius, those same years can become a staircase toward the heavens. Remembering the weak young man of those earlier days, and comparing him with the figure leading this assembly of experts, Fuheyu and the others could only sigh inwardly with admiration.
Well, here.
Chu Feng suddenly stopped. Beneath them stretched the azure province of the 9 provinces continent, and directly below lay Golden Purple City. Golden Purple City was not the ancestral home of the Chu family. Yet it was here that so many members of that family had been massacred. If the resurrection secret technique could truly summon them back from death, there could be no more fitting place to attempt it.
Seniors, please wait for me here. I will return immediately.
Leaving the others behind, Chu Feng personally headed toward the Azure Dragon School. He was going there to gather the surviving members of the Chu family, but not simply so he could announce the astonishing possibility of resurrection. The secret technique possessed a crucial condition. The souls of the deceased needed to be called by their close relative. That meant Chu Feng's own longing was not enough. Many of those slaughtered years ago had not been especially close to him, so if he wished to revive as many Chu clansmen as possible, he needed living relatives, connected to each of them by stronger bonds. For that reason, Chu Gu, Chu Wai, Chu Cheng, Chu Zhen, Chu Yu, and the other surviving members of the Chu family were indispensable. Upon arriving at the Azure Dragon School, Chu Feng did not hide anything. He directly told Chu Guyu and the others why he had returned and explained the resurrection technique he intended to attempt. Shock immediately seized them. Resurrection was something they had never witnessed, never experienced, and scarcely even imagined possible. To them, calling a dead person back into the living world belonged to legends rather than reality. And yet disbelief could not extinguish hope. However impossible it sounded, they chose to follow Chu Feng. That was perhaps the cruelest part of Chu Feng's promise. When someone tells the grieving that the dead might return, hope itself becomes frightening. Believe too much and failure can wound the heart a second time. Refuse to believe, and one might abandon the only miracle ever offered. Soon the surviving Chu clansmen arrived at Golden Purple City. They were not alone. The Azure Dragon founder Lai Zhangqing's huge Lian and others from the Azure Dragon School had followed as well.
Heavens! This!
The moment the Azure Dragon founder Chu Guyu and the others saw the gathering of experts from the Holy Land of Martialism, they froze in astonishment. The difference in cultivation was simply too immense. Those experts had deliberately restrained and concealed their auras, yet in the eyes of the Azure Dragon School's people, their mere presence still carried an extraordinary weight. Standing before figures such as the Elf King Chu Guyu and the others felt like blades of grass beneath towering mountains small enough that even comparison seemed meaningless. This scene revealed Chu Feng's transformation more clearly than any boast about cultivation could have done. The people who once represented the highest mountains in his world were now standing in awe before the companions he had gathered on his journey. His status was no longer something that needed to be proclaimed. It could be seen simply by looking at who stood beside him.
Little brother Chu Feng, those people there, all your friends, from the Holy Land of Martialism.
Chu Yu could scarcely conceal her curiosity. Only now did she begin to understand that her younger cousin's achievements were even greater than she had imagined.
We are all Chu Feng's friends.
The Elf King deliberately spoke with a warm smile and a gentle tone. He clearly did not wish his overwhelming status to frighten the people of the Azure Dragon School. One after another, the others also affirmed their close relationship with Chu Feng. A collective breath of shock escaped the people from the Azure Dragon School. They had always known Chu Feng possessed astonishing potential, but even their boldest expectations had fallen short of the reality standing before them. Their astonishment soon became pride. Every gaze turned toward Chu Feng, because whatever heights he had reached, they were people who had once stood beside him, taught him, protected him, or shared the same road with him. For the Azure Dragon School, Chu Feng had become living proof that someone born from their familiar corner of the world could rise beyond everything they understood. And perhaps that pride was even more precious because Chu Feng had not returned as an aloof supreme expert. He still returned as their Chu Feng. Then, just as the atmosphere grew solemn, a certain figure suddenly moved. Like a phantom, Wang Qiang appeared directly in front of Chu Yu. Bare-chested and dressed in his usual bizarre fashion, he looked strange enough to draw attention anywhere. Yet the strength he possessed was unquestionably immense, leaving Chu Yu unwilling to treat him disrespectfully.
Beauty and nice to meet you. I am CC Chu Feng's good friend. My name is Wang Qiang. May I ask, are you Chu Feng's big sister?
Senior, nice to meet you. I am Chu Feng's older cousin. My name is Chu Yu.
MID, don't address me as SS senior. I might even be younger than you. See, come, let's SSSSH shake hand.
Wang Qiang extended his filthy, foul-smelling hand with a broad grin. Believing him to be a powerful senior, and unwilling to offend him, Chu Yu prepared to accept the handshake. She failed to notice the ridiculous expression on Wang Qiang's face as his excitement became increasingly obvious. Pause. Before their hands could meet, Chu Feng slapped Wang Qiang's hand aside.
Graham, you're even trying to take advantage of my big sister Chu Yu. Have you grown tired of living?
Nonsense. ITT, that sort of pee per person.
Wang Qiang defended himself with an air of perfect righteousness. Then almost immediately his body blurred again, and he appeared in front of Chu Zhu wearing precisely the same beaming smile.
Nice to meet you. I am Chu Feng's friend. May I know who you might be?
Chu Feng could only sigh helplessly. There was no point wasting energy on Wang Qiang's behavior. Far more important matters awaited him.
Big brother, big sister Chu Yu, let's start.
The light-hearted interruption vanished. The true purpose of their return now stood before them.
Little brother, is it truly possible?
Chu Guyu still found resurrection almost impossible to believe. Yet beneath that disbelief lived a hope he could not suppress. He wanted desperately for the secret technique to be real.
Let's give it a try.
Chu Feng smiled faintly, but beneath that smile was unease. The truth was that even he did not know whether the technique would succeed. For all the strength Chu Feng possessed, this was a battle he could not win through overwhelming cultivation. No enemy stood before him to be defeated by force. He was challenging death itself through a secret technique, whose result even he could not guarantee. That uncertainty frightened him more than many opponents ever had. He wanted the technique to work. He wanted the Chu family to return. And precisely because that wish mattered so deeply, the possibility of failure weighed heavily upon his heart. Then Chu Feng began. Woes, woes, woes. Formation power surged beneath golden purple city, as Chu Feng personally laid down an enormous grand formation. Because failure was unacceptable to him, every pattern, every connection, and every detail was arranged with extreme care. This was where Chu Feng's attainments as a world spiritist mattered as much as his martial cultivation. A grand formation of this nature could not be treated like an ordinary technique. One flaw might mean not merely losing a battle, but losing the possibility of seeing his dead relatives ever again. At last the formation was complete. Chu Feng and the surviving members of the Chu family took their places cross-legged around its core. Once everyone entered the formation, they closed their eyes. Their task sounded simple, yet carried the weight of years of grief. They were to release their longing for those who had died and call to their relatives again and again within their hearts. Everything beyond that would be left to Chu Feng. Imagine the emotions within that formation. Names that had not been answered for years were being called again. Faces buried beneath memories were being summoned back into the hearts of the living. Whether the secret technique succeeded or failed, the Chu family was being forced to reopen wounds that time had never truly healed. Then Chu Feng's eyes sharpened.
Rise.
In that instant, all 55,555 white candles, arranged within the grand formation, ignited at the same time. Flames sprang into existence across the formation, like tens of thousands of pale stars, awakening beneath the heaven. At the same moment, an indescribably strange power began pulsing outward. That secret technique. Whether they came from the Holy Land of Martialism or the Eastern Sea region, every observer felt their heart tighten. Their expressions changed almost simultaneously. The instant those candles burned, the mysterious power of the formation engulfed their bodies. None of them had ever encountered such an energy before. It did not feel like ordinary martial power. It did not resemble spirit energy killing intent or the pressure of cultivation. Instead, it seemed to reach toward something far deeper. Their very souls seemed to be drawn toward the grand formation. And that was the first true sign that this resurrection technique was no empty legend. Even experts who had witnessed countless extraordinary powers could not recognize what they were feeling. Whatever Chu Feng had activated, it was touching a boundary beyond ordinary cultivation, the mysterious divide between the living and the dead. But sensing the power was only the beginning. The real question remained unanswered. Could those 55,555 flames truly guide the fallen members of the Chu family back across that impossible boundary? The secret resurrection formation continued to blaze with strange, profound power, its currents of world spirit energy flowing like invisible rivers through the air. The heaven-reaching immortal watched the formation with shining eyes. Having personally sensed the force contained within it, even an expert of his standing could no longer dismiss the resurrection technique as mere legend.
It would seem that the secret resurrection technique is truly feasible.
Yet hope alone could not summon the dead. One full day passed beneath the formation's radiance, and not a single spirit body appeared. Worse still, even great world spiritists such as the heaven-reaching immortal could detect no trace of a gathering soul. Disappointment slowly spread through the crowd. The longer that silence endured, the harder it became to believe that the dead of the Chu family could truly return. The cruelest part of such a technique was not simply whether it worked. It was that its very existence forced grieving people to open a door they had already struggled to close, the door called hope. 2 entire days passed. At last Chu Guyu opened his eyes within the formation. Only then did he notice that Chu Zhen, Chu Yu, and the others had awakened before him. Their expressions told him everything. Disappointment weighed upon their faces, accompanied by the pain of an answer none of them wished to accept.
Did we fail?
No elaborate explanation was necessary. Many of those present reluctantly nodded. The secret resurrection technique had failed to produce the miracle they desired. Deep sorrow surfaced in Chu Gaia's eyes. He had never dared place absolute faith in resurrection, yet even a fragile thread of possibility had been enough to make him dream. Knowing that a miracle is unlikely does not make its failure painless. For Chu Guyu and the others, this was not a failed experiment. It was the loss of their father, grandfather, and clansmen all over again. Then Chu Guyu suddenly froze. Everyone else had opened their eyes, everyone except Chu Feng. Chu Feng remained seated at the heart of the formation, his eyes closed, while streams of world spirit power continued pouring from him and merging ceaselessly into the formation.
Little brother.
Chu Feng finally opened his eyes. There was no anger in them nor panic. He merely gave his elder brother a faint smile.
Let's try again.
With those simple words, Chu Feng closed his eyes and once more drove the secret resurrection technique. Seeing him refuse to surrender, Chu Guyu and the others also closed their eyes and continued beside him. 1 day became 2. 2 became 3. The formation continued to turn, and Chu Feng continued to endure. By the 7th day there was still no soul, no spirit body, no sign that the dead were returning. Around him hope finally began to crumble. Most had accepted that the deceased members of the Chu family would probably never be revived. Chu Feng alone refused to stop. Whoever tried to persuade him, whatever argument they used, he continued feeding power into the formation. This persistence revealed something deeper than stubbornness. Chu Feng had crossed countless battlefields and endured enemies far stronger than himself, yet this opponent was different. There was nothing to strike, nothing to outwit, nothing to defeat with cultivation. He was fighting against irreversible loss itself. At last Chu Guyu stepped before him. By now everyone had gathered around Chu Feng, their concern growing heavier with every breath.
Little brother, I know you want to revive father, grandfather, and the others. We want that too. But we must recognize reality. It is time to stop. If you continue like this, you will damage your health.
Chu Feng opened his eyes. He smiled as though the burden were light, but his appearance betrayed him. 7 days and 7 nights of continuously maintaining such an extraordinary spirit formation had consumed an enormous amount of mental strength. His body was already approaching its limit.
I understand, but let me continue for 1 more day. If there is still no result after that, I will give up.
This was no ordinary formation that could be sustained casually. Even with Chu Feng's extraordinary perseverance and powerful spirit energy, continuing indefinitely would eventually make him collapse. Yet he still forced himself onward. The people surrounding him were not moved by some glorious display of strength. They were frightened because they understood exactly what Chu Feng was doing, spending himself for one last impossible chance. Sometimes perseverance is admirable. Sometimes beyond a certain point, it begins to resemble self-destruction. Just then Huang Fuheiyu spoke, bringing with him a concern far different from Chu Gaia.
Chu Feng, if you wish to persist, all of us will support you. However, I fear there may not be enough time.
Senior, please rest assured. I can still endure.
No, I am not talking about your health.
Then what do you mean?
The heavenly road. Aren't you planning to enter it?
The instant those words fell, Chu Feng's pupils contracted. For 7 days his entire mind had been bound to the dead of the Chu family. Huang Fuheiyu's reminder suddenly pulled another unavoidable matter back before him.
The heavenly road is about to open.
That's right. If you intend to go, I fear you must leave immediately.
Chu Feng looked back toward the resurrection formation, his emotions twisting together. Deep down he already understood the truth. The attempt had failed. He had merely been unwilling to abandon that last thread of hope. But now another road demanded his choice. Before entering the outer world, Chu Feng had to meet his father. The blind old man had already used the communication talisman given to him by Chu Feng's father, meaning they could no longer simply contact him again. If Chu Feng wished to see his father, there was only one path left. He had to enter the heavenly road and locate the forbidden area belonging to the Chu family within. And the heavenly road opened only once each year. Missing this opportunity meant waiting another full year. For Chu Feng, this was a clash between past and future. Behind him were the loved ones he desperately wished to reclaim. Ahead waited his father, the outer world, and the truth of his own origin. Remaining here might satisfy his heart for another day, but it could also cost him an entire year on the road he was destined to walk. Having finally made his decision, Chu Feng addressed the seniors around him.
Seniors, please rest at the Azure Dragon School for now. After I return from the Heavenly Road, I would like to attempt this secret resurrection technique once more.
Chu Feng, do you truly not need us to accompany you?
Chu Feng shook his head and turned his gaze toward the four great divine beasts.
Having the four seniors accompany me will be enough.
With the matter settled, Chu Feng and the four great divine beasts once again departed toward the Eastern Sea region. During their journey, the blind old man who had remained concealed until then finally revealed himself. There was little reason to continue hiding, especially when allowing him to lead would greatly increase their traveling speed. The moment the four great divine beasts saw him, their expressions changed. They naturally recognized the blind old man, for they had accompanied Chu Feng through his earlier experiences. What shocked them now was not his face, but the vast and unfathomable aura surrounding him. They had once followed King Xianxia, a legendary figure, whose name shook an era, yet even during those years, they had never encountered someone as overwhelmingly powerful as this blind old servant. Chu Feng did not hide the truth from them. He revealed the blind old man's identity and explained the origins connected to his own clan. The four great divine beasts were stunned. Only now did they understand just how extraordinary Chu Feng's background truly was. A power that stood at the very summit of the Holy Land of Martialism was merely composed of servants belonging to Chu Feng's clan. That revelation completely changed the scale of Chu Feng's story. In the Holy Land of Martialism, powers capable of making countless cultivators bow their heads were regarded as colossal existences. Yet compared with the mysterious Chu clan behind Chu Feng, even such giants suddenly seemed small. The outer world was no longer simply another destination. It represented an entirely greater stage of cultivation. While they traveled, the blind old man raised another unresolved matter, one intimately connected to Su Ru and Su Mei.
Master, when you meet Lord Xianxia, it would be best to tell him about the Moon Immortal. Originally, after acknowledging my relationship with you, this old servant intended to retrieve Su Ru and Su Mei's bodies from the Moon Immortal. However, ever since the Moon Immortal escaped, after battling the Dark Hall's Hall Master before the Transmogrification Gate, I have been unable to discover any trace of her. Thus, we can only ask Lord Qianxia for assistance.
The blind old man deliberately spoke openly before the four great divine beasts. He knew they would accompany Chu Feng into the outer world, and that they would likely fight beside him there. There was therefore no longer any reason to conceal matters that could affect them.
It would naturally be best if my father is willing to help.
Chu Feng had never abandoned the matter of Su Ru and Su Mei. If there was any possible way to reclaim their physical bodies from the Moon Immortal, he wished to pursue it. Yet as the blind old man spoke, subtle changes appeared in the eyes of the four great divine beasts. They exchanged glances, then silently consulted one another. Their reaction was impossible to ignore. These four had once followed King Xianxia himself, which meant their knowledge of the Moon Immortal came from an era and perspective unavailable to Chu Feng. Whatever they were about to reveal clearly carried enough weight that they needed to agree among themselves before speaking. Finally, the Azure Dragon broke the silence.
Chu Feng, there is something that I believe it is time for us to tell you.
Senior Azure Dragon, what is it?
It concerns the Moon Immortal.
Chu Feng was startled, but almost immediately he remembered that the four great divine beasts had once followed King Xianxia. If King Xianxia had encountered the Moon Immortal, these four might well have witnessed those events and understood her far better than Chu Feng ever could.
Seniors, please tell me whatever you know.
The Azure Dragon's answer was not an explanation of the Moon Immortal's origins, nor a warning about how to defeat her. Instead, it was a request one that immediately overturned the direction of the conversation.
Chu Feng, if you are able to capture the Moon Immortal, please do not harm her.
And with that single plea, a new mystery emerged. Why would companions of King Xianxia ask Chu Feng to spare the very being occupying Su Ru and Su Mei's body? Whatever history connected King Xianxia, the four great divine beasts, and the Moon Immortal had clearly not yet been revealed. The heavenly road awaited ahead, but another secret from the past had just opened its eye.